Jin-Ho Park wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked his tablet one more time. The air in the landing bay felt thick with tension. Today was not a normal day at Nexus 7 space station. Today, humans would meet the Tyrrell for the first time, in person. "Don't look so worried," said Captain Lee as she walked past. "Just smile and don't show your teeth. They think it's a threat." Jin-Ho nodded. As the station's top expert on alien biology, he had studied the Tyrrell for months. They were tall, reptile-like beings with scales that shimmered like metal. They were also known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. The station rumbled as the Tyrrell ship docked. Jin-Ho straightened his blue uniform and took a deep breath. The doors of the landing bay opened with a hiss. The first Tyrrell to step through was nearly 7 feet tall. Golden scales covered its body and its yellow eyes scanned the room quickly. Behind it came 5 more Tyrrell, each wearing what looked like armor made of black metal. "Welcome to Nexus 7, said Captain Lee with a small bow. "I am Captain Lee, and this is Dr. Jin-Ho Park, our head of alien biology. He will be your guide during your stay." The lead Tyrrell looked down at Jin-Ho. Its face showed what Jin-Ho guessed was disgust. "I am Ambassador Krell," it said in a deep voice. "We thank you for your hospitality." Jin-Ho gave a small bow, careful not to show his teeth. "The honor is ours, Ambassador. May I show you to the meeting hall? We have prepared a welcome ceremony." Ambassador Krell made a sound like stones grinding together. Jin-Ho realized it was a laugh. "Humans," said Krell. "Always with ceremonies. Very well. Lead on, small one." As they walked through the station's main hallway, Jin-Ho noticed one of the Tyrrell carrying a strange container. It looked like a metal box with glowing lines running across its surface. Something about it caught Jin-Ho's eye. "Ambassador." "Jin-Ho," said carefully. "May I ask what your companion is carrying?" The Tyrrell carrying the box looked at Krell, who nodded. "This is a gift for the Galactic Council," said Krell. "It holds the egg of a Vorscan." Jin-Ho almost stopped walking. A Vorscan? He had read about them in the database. They were said to be the most dangerous hunters in the known galaxy. A perfect killing machine. "I thought they were extinct," said Jin-Ho, unable to hide his surprise. "Nearly," said Krell. "This may be the last egg in existence. We are taking it to the Council's biopreservation vault." Jin-Ho wanted to ask more questions, but they had reached the meeting hall. Inside, 30 staff members from the station waited. The room was decorated with flags from Earth and symbols of the Tyrrell homeworld. Captain Lee began a speech about friendship between species. Jin-Ho stood to the side. His eyes kept going back to the container with the egg. The Tyrrell who held it placed it on a special stand at the front of the room. After the speeches, food and drinks were served. Jin-Ho noticed that the Tyrrell did not eat much. They seemed more interested in studying the humans. "You are wondering about the Vorscan," said a voice behind Jin-Ho. He turned to find Ambassador Krell standing there, holding a drink that steamed slightly. "Yes," admitted Jin-Ho. "I've studied many species, but never a true apex predator like the Vorscan." Krell's eyes narrowed. "In ancient times, my people would hunt them to prove our worth. A single Vorscan could kill 10 warriors before being taken down." The ambassador's voice held a strange mix of fear and pride. "They were perfect killers. Fast, strong, smart. Too smart, some said." "And now they're gone," said Jin-Ho. "By our hand," said Krell. "A mistake my people now regret." This egg was found in an old hunting trophy room. It has been kept in stasis for hundreds of years. Taking it to the Council is our way of making peace with the past. Before Jin-Ho could ask another question, the floor beneath them shook. People grabbed onto tables and chairs as the shaking grew stronger. "Earthquake!" someone shouted. Jin-Ho knew it wasn't a true earthquake. They were on a space station. But something was causing serious vibrations. He looked up just in time to see the stand with the Vorscan egg container topple over. Without thinking, Jin-Ho dived forward. He slid across the floor and caught the container just before it hit the ground. The shaking stopped as suddenly as it had started. "Are you okay?" asked Captain Lee, helping Jin-Ho up. I'm fine, said Jinho. He looked down at the container in his arms. The glowing lines had changed from blue to red. But I think something's wrong with the egg. Ambassador Krell rushed over. The stasis field is failing, the ambassador said, voice tight with concern. The fall must have damaged it. An alarm beeped from the container. Jinho's tablet translated the tarot writing that flashed across its surface. It says the egg is beginning to hatch, Jinho said. Is that bad? It is too soon, said Krell. The egg needs special conditions to hatch properly. Temperature, atmosphere, nutrients all must be perfect. Captain Lee's communicator buzzed. Captain, we need all senior staff and our guests in the command center immediately. That tremor caused damage to the lower levels. Krell looked torn between duty and the egg. Jinho made a quick decision. I can take it to my lab, he said. I have equipment that might help stabilize it. You? Krell's voice was sharp with disbelief. What does a human know of Vorskan biology? Not much, admitted Jinho. But I'm a quick learner, and right now that egg needs immediate attention. Another alarm sounded from the container. Krell looked at the readings and made a sound like a hiss. Very well, the ambassador said finally. But if the egg dies in your care, human... The threat hung in the air between them. I understand, said Jinho. I'll do everything I can. Krell nodded once, then followed Captain Lee out of the room. The other Tyrell went with them, though they cast suspicious glances back at Jinho. Jinho held the container carefully as he rushed to his lab. The egg inside was dark blue with faint silver markings. Through the clear top of the container he could see small cracks already forming on its surface. His lab door slid open automatically as he approached. Computer, access all files on Vorskan biology, he said as he placed the container on his main workbench. Warning, limited data available, said the computer's voice. Vorskan species classified as extinct. Information may be incomplete. Jinho connected his tablet to the container and studied the readings. The egg's core temperature was rising fast, and its shell was becoming thinner. It's going to hatch no matter what, he muttered to himself. All I can do is try to make sure it survives. He worked quickly, setting up a climate-controlled chamber and synthesizing nutrients that the database suggested might help a newborn Vorskan. Time seemed to blur as he focused on his task. A crack echoed through the lab, louder than the first ones. Jinho looked up to see the egg splitting open from top to bottom. Oh no, he whispered. Not yet. The lab door slid open, and Dr. Songyi, Jinho's boss, stepped in. Her eyes widened at the sight before her. Jinho, what in the stars are you doing with that? Before Jinho could answer, the egg split completely open. Something dark blue and scaly emerged, shaking off pieces of shell. It was about the size of a house cat, with 6 limbs ending in tiny but sharp-looking claws. Its head swiveled toward Jinho, and large yellow eyes with slits for pupils locked onto his face. Jinho and Songyi both froze. The baby Vorskan, the first to be born in perhaps hundreds of years, stared at Jinho for a long moment. Then it made a chirping sound and took a wobbly step toward him. Jinho, whispered Songyi, don't move. But Jinho wasn't afraid. Something about those eyes held intelligence, curiosity, and trust. The Vorskan chirped again, then launched itself from the table straight at Jinho's chest. He caught it on. Reflex, Songye gasped. Jinho waited for pain, for the famous claws and teeth to tear into him. Instead, the baby Vorskan curled up against his chest, made a sound almost like purring, and closed its eyes. I don't believe it, said Songyi. It thinks you're its parent. Jinho looked down at the deadly predator now sleeping peacefully in his arms. Ambassador Krell's warning echoed in his mind. He was now holding the galaxy's most dangerous killer, and somehow he had become its dad. Jinho Park, have you lost your mind? Dr. Songyi's voice was quiet but sharp. She stared at the baby Vorskan sleeping in Jinho's arms. That thing is going to grow up to be a killer. We need to call security right now. Jinho shook his head. Look at it, Dr. Songyi. It's just a baby. It needs help. The small blue creature snuggled closer to Jinho's chest. Its scales were smooth and warm against his skin. 6 tiny limbs twitched as it dreamed. The station AI says that even at this age its bite can cut through metal, said Song Yi. She kept her distance from Jinho and the baby. And you're holding it like it's a kitten. It trusts me, said Jinho. I think it imprinted on me. You know, like baby birds do with the first thing they see. Song Yi rubbed her forehead. The Terril are going to be very angry. That egg was supposed to go to the Galactic Council. As if on cue, Jinho's communicator buzzed. Captain Lee's voice came through, sounding tense. Jinho, Ambassador Krell is asking about the egg. How is it doing? Jinho looked down at the sleeping forescan. How could he explain that the egg had hatched and now the baby thought he was its parent? There's been a development, he said carefully. The egg, it hatched. Silence. Then Captain Lee spoke again, her voice even more tense. Ambassador, Krell is on the way to your lab right now. The line went dead. Jinho and Song Yi looked at each other. I should take the Vorskan, said Song Yi, reaching for the baby. Maybe if it's not with you when they arrive. As her hands came close, the baby Vorskan's eyes snapped open. It made a hissing noise that sounded much too big for its small body. Sharp teeth showed as its mouth opened wide. Song Yi jumped back. See? It's dangerous already. The Vorskan stopped hissing as soon as Song Yi moved away from Jinho. It looked up at him with those big yellow eyes, then made a soft chirping sound. It's protecting me, said Jinho with surprise. It thinks I'm its parent. The lab door slid open. Ambassador Krell rushed in, followed by 2 Terril guards. The room suddenly felt very small with the tall aliens inside. Krell's eyes found the baby Vorskan in Jinho's arms. The ambassador froze. What have you done, human? Krell's voice was cold. I didn't do anything, said Jinho. The egg was going to hatch no matter what. I just made sure it had the right conditions to survive. One of the Terril guards took a step toward Jinho. The baby Vorskan hissed again, louder this time. It climbed up onto Jinho's shoulder, putting itself between him and the Terril. Impossible, said Krell. The ambassador's anger seemed to turn into wonder. In all our history, no Vorskan has ever bonded with another species. They barely tolerated their own kind. Maybe it doesn't know it's supposed to hate everyone, said Jinho. He reached up and gently stroked the baby's head. It made a purring sound, but kept its eyes on the Terril. Captain Lee entered the lab, looking worried. Ambassador Krell, I assure you this was not planned. If there's anything we can do, be quiet, said Krell, but not unkindly. The ambassador moved closer to Jinho, careful and slow. The Vorskan watched, but did not hiss. It seemed curious about this new being. Our legends say the Vorskan had a kind of wisdom, said Krell. They could sense things about other creatures. Perhaps it senses something in you, human. Jinho thought about this. What will happen to it now? Will you still take it to the Galactic Council? Krell looked at the baby Vorskan, then at Jinho. That may be difficult now. It has formed a bond with you. Separating you might harm its development or worse. It needs a name, said Jinho suddenly. We can't just keep calling it or the Vorskan. The Terril seemed surprised by this idea. Names are for people, said one of the guards. The Vorskan is an animal, Jinho shook his head. Look at its eyes. There's intelligence there. And anyway, on Earth we name animals too. He thought for a moment. I'll call it Day. It means greatness in my language. The baby Vorskan, Day, seemed to like the sound of this. It made a trilling noise and bumped, its head against Jinho's cheek. The council must be informed, said Captain Lee. She looked nervous. This changes everything about the agreement. Krell nodded. I will speak with them. Until then, the ambassador looked at Jinho. It seems you have become a parent, human. I hope you understand what that means. Jinho wasn't sure he did understand, but looking at Day, he knew he couldn't abandon it. I'll take care of it. Of Day, he said. I promise. After the Terrell and Captain Lee left, Song-Yi stayed behind. She looked at Jin-Ho and Dae with a mix of worry and fascination. "You know this will change your life," she said. "That thing will grow bigger, much bigger." Jin-Ho nodded. "I know, but I can't just hand it over to people who see it as a specimen. It trusts me." Song-Yi sighed. "Well, you always wanted to do important research. I guess raising a baby apex predator counts." She managed a small smile. "What does it eat?" That was a good question. Jin-Ho checked the station database again. According to the records, young Vorskans eat meat. Lots of it. He looked at Dae, who was now exploring the lab countertop, sniffing at equipment. "We'll need to get some from the food synthesizer." The next few hours were busy. Jin-Ho turned part of his lab into a living space for himself and Dae. He couldn't go back to his small room. Dae needed constant care and monitoring. Jin-Ho discovered that Dae was a fast learner. By the end of the day, the young Vorskan understood that certain areas of the lab were off limits. It used a box of sand Jin-Ho prepared when it needed to relieve itself. And it ate a lot. "That's your third helping," said Jin-Ho, as Dae finished another bowl of synthesized meat. "You're going to grow very big, aren't you?" Dae looked up at him, meat juice dripping from its mouth. It made a happy chirping sound. As night cycle approached on the station, Jin-Ho set up a small bed for himself near Dae's warm nest of blankets. But when he lay down, Dae immediately abandoned its nest and climbed onto his chest. "Hey," said Jin-Ho, "you have your own bed." Dae ignored him, turning in circles before settling down right on top of Jin-Ho's heart. Its steady purring filled the quiet lab. Jin-Ho sighed but smiled. "Okay, just for tonight." He stroked Dae's smooth scales as he thought about what had happened. In just one day, he had gone from being a normal xenobiologist to the adoptive father of the last Vorskan in the galaxy. His communicator buzzed with messages. News of Dae was spreading through the station. Everyone wanted to see the baby apex predator. Some messages were excited, others worried. A few were angry, saying it was dangerous to keep such a creature on the station. Jin-Ho turned off his communicator. "Those problems could wait until tomorrow. Just you and me for now," he told Dae. "We'll figure this out together." Dae's yellow eyes blinked slowly. One of its 6 limbs stretched out to touch Jin-Ho's face, gentle, despite the sharp claws. As he drifted off to sleep, Jin-Ho wondered what the Galactic Council would say. Would they demand that Dae be sent to their biopreservation vault anyway? Would the Terrell try to claim it as part of their heritage? Whatever happened, Jin-Ho knew one thing for certain. He would protect Dae no matter what. Somehow, in the space of a day, the most dangerous predator in the galaxy had become the most important thing in his life. He had become a dad to an apex predator, and strangely, it felt right. A week passed. Jin-Ho's lab had become the most famous place on Nexus 7 station. Everyone wanted to see Dae, the last Vorskan in the galaxy. Jin-Ho sat at his desk, trying to work while Dae played with the tough ball Jin-Ho had made for it. In just 7 days, Dae had grown to the size of a large dog. Its midnight blue scales shone under the lab lights, and its 6 limbs moved with growing strength and skill. "You're getting faster," Jin-Ho told Dae as it caught the ball in midair. "Soon, I won't be able to keep up with you." Dae made a happy trilling sound. It brought the ball back to Jin-Ho and waited for him to throw it again. The lab door chimed. Jin-Ho sighed. More visitors. "Come in," he called. The door slid open to reveal Tae-woo, a Korean human diplomat who had arrived at the station 2 days ago. Behind him stood a tall Tyrell that Jin-Ho didn't recognize. "Good morning, Dr. Park," said Tae-woo with a small bow. "This is Vex, sent by the Terrell High Command to observe the Vorskan." Vex looked around the lab with clear disgust. "This is where you keep the last Vorskan, in this tiny room?" Jin-Ho tried not to feel offended. "We go to the station's garden area twice a day for exercise. Dae has everything it needs right now." When Vex stepped forward, Dae dropped its ball and moved in front of Jin-Ho. It didn't hiss, but its body language made it clear. The Tyrell should keep his distance. "The creature is protective," said Vex. "Interesting. Day, said Jinho. Its name is Day. Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh. You name it like a pet. The Vorskan were the greatest hunters our world ever knew. They were worthy opponents, not companions. Taewoo cleared his throat. Dr. Park, I have updates from the Galactic Council. They've been in emergency sessions about Day for 3 days. Jinho felt his stomach tighten. And? 3 different species are claiming rights to Day, said Taewoo. The Terrell say it's their cultural heritage. The Zarn believe any endangered species belongs under council protection, and the myth claimed that as the oldest spacefaring race, they should decide Day's fate. What about what Day wants? Asked Jinho. It's made its choice clear. Day seemed to understand they were talking about it. It pressed against Jinho's leg and looked up at him with those intelligent yellow eyes. The council doesn't recognize Vorskans as sentient, said Taewoo. They're classified as animals, not people. Vex stepped closer. This time Day did hiss. A sound like steam escaping a pipe. The Terrell warrior didn't back away. I am here to evaluate the situation. If the Vorskan, Day, is truly bonded to you, we need to understand why. Jinho's communicator buzzed. It was Dr. Song Yi. Jinho, you need to come to the main meeting hall right now. Representatives from the council just arrived. They want to see Day. Jinho looked at Taewoo. Did you know about this? The diplomat nodded. I'm sorry. They insisted on coming right away. Jinho knelt beside Day. We need to go meet some important people. Stay close to me, okay? Day made a low rumbling sound that Jinho had learned meant understanding. The walk to the meeting hall felt like a parade. Station staff stopped to watch as Jinho, Day, Taewoo, and Vex passed by. Some looked excited, others afraid. Day ignored them all, focused only on staying by Jinho's side. The main meeting hall was full of aliens from different species. Jinho recognized Ambassador Krell and Captain Lee at the front of the room, along with Dr. Song Yi. 3 new aliens sat at a large table, representatives from the Galactic Council. As Jinho and Day entered, the room went quiet. All eyes turned to them. That's it? Said one of the council representatives, a tall, thin alien with pale skin. That's the Vorskan? Yes, Counselor Zin, said Captain Lee. This is Day, and it's caretaker, Dr. Jinho Park. Jinho bowed slightly to the council members. Day stayed pressed against his leg, watching everyone with alert eyes. It has grown considerably, said Ambassador Krell, and its coloring is exceptional, a fine specimen. The council members approached slowly. Day tensed, but didn't hiss. Remarkable, said another council member, whose body was covered in short green fur. It shows no aggression despite being surrounded by potential threats. It trusts Dr. Park to protect it, said Dr. Song Yi. She had been studying Day almost as much as Jinho had. Their bond is unlike anything we've seen before. Nevertheless, said the third council member, whose species Jinho didn't recognize, the original agreement was for the Vorskan egg to be placed in the council's biopreservation vault. The creature belongs under council protection. Jinho felt anger rise in his chest. Day is not a thing to be owned. It's a living being with its own wants and needs. Dr. Park, said Taewoo in a warning tone. The council members are our guests, but Jinho couldn't stay quiet. Has anyone asked what would happen to Day if you took it away from me? We've bonded. Separating us could harm its development. Ambassador Krell stepped forward. The human speaks truth. Our scientists have been studying the data Dr. Song Yi has shared. The Vorskan's brain patterns show unusual development. Its intelligence is growing faster than any Vorskan we have record of. This was news to Jinho. He looked at Dr. Song Yi, who nodded. It's true, she said. Day's brain activity is off the charts compared to fossil records of juvenile Vorskans. Something about its bond with you is accelerating its mental growth. The council members looked at each other. This requires further study, said Counselor Zin. Perhaps we could move both Dr. Park and the Vorskin to the Council Science Center. Before Jin-Ho could answer, chaos erupted at the back of the room. 3 figures in dark clothes burst in, holding weapons. "Nobody move," shouted one of them. "We're taking the Vorskin specimen." Station security officers moved to stop them, but the intruders fired their weapons. Energy blasts hit the ceiling, causing people to duck for cover. Jin-Ho's only thought was protecting Day. He dropped to his knees and threw his arms around the young Vorskin. "Stay down," he whispered. But Day had other ideas. It broke free from Jin-Ho's hold and let out a roar that sounded impossibly loud for its size. The sound echoed through the room, making everyone freeze. The intruders hesitated. In that moment, Vex moved with shocking speed. The Terrell warrior disarmed one intruder, then another. Station security tackled the third. Jin-Ho didn't see what happened next. A stray energy blast hit close to him, sending him flying backward. His head hit the floor hard, and pain exploded behind his eyes. The last thing he saw before blackness took him was Day leaping through the air, all 6 limbs extended, heading straight for the intruder who had fired the shot. When Jin-Ho woke up, he was in the station's medical bay. His head throbbed. He tried to sit up and felt gentle hands pushing him back down. "Careful," said Dr. Song-Yi. "You have a concussion." "Day," said Jin-Ho, his voice rough. "Where's Day?" Dr. Song-Yi smiled and pointed to the foot of his bed. There, curled up and sleeping, was Day. The young Vorskin's chest rose and fell with each breath. "It wouldn't leave your side," said Dr. Song-Yi. The medical staff tried to make it wait outside, but it just kept coming back in. Eventually, they gave up. "What happened?" "The intruders. Captured," said a deep voice. Jin-Ho turned to see Vex standing by the door. The Terrell warrior looked at him with what might have been respect. "They were rogue scientists," continued Vex. "They wanted to study the Vorskin. Your D helped capture them. It displayed remarkable intelligence." Jin-Ho reached out a hand toward Day. As if sensing him, the young Vorskin opened its eyes and chirped happily. It moved up the bed and gently nudged Jin-Ho's hand with its head. "The council members were quite impressed," said Dr. Song-Yi. "Seeing Day protect you changed their minds. They're considering a new arrangement." Jin-Ho stroked Day's scales. "What kind of arrangement?" Dr. Song-Yi smiled. "One that keeps you two together. It seems the last Vorskin in the galaxy has chosen its family, and no one wants to argue with an apex predator." Over 6 months passed. Day had grown bigger than anyone expected. The young Vorskin was now the size of a large tiger, with powerful muscles under its midnight blue scales. Its 6 limbs moved with grace that seemed impossible for a creature so large, and its yellow eyes missed nothing. Jin-Ho had to move out of his lab. It was too small for Day now. The station gave them special quarters with high ceilings and tough walls that could handle Day's strength. A section of the station's garden area was set aside just for Day to exercise. "Good morning," said Jin-Ho, as Day's eyes opened. The Vorskin made a rumbling sound and stretched all 6 limbs at once. Its claws, now as long as Jin-Ho's fingers, extended and then retracted. "Ready for breakfast?" asked Jin-Ho. Day's answer was to stand up and walk to the door. Jin-Ho smiled. Day ate 5 times more food than a human. The station's food synthesizers worked overtime to keep up. As they walked through the station halls, people moved aside. Most staff had gotten used to seeing Day, but they still kept their distance. Jin-Ho couldn't blame them. Day was, after all, a deadly predator. But not to Jin-Ho. To him, Day was family. They reached the garden area where Vex was waiting. The Terrell warrior had stayed on the station studying Day and training Jin-Ho. "You are late," said Vex. "Sorry," said Jin-Ho. "Someone was slow to wake up today." He looked at Day, who pretended not to understand. Vex had changed in the past months. At first, he had treated his assignment to watch Day as an insult. Now, he seemed to enjoy teaching Jin-Ho how to keep up with the growing Vorskin. "Today we will work on defense," said Vex. "You must learn to protect yourself when Day is not with you." Jin-Ho didn't argue. He had learned that lesson the hard way after the attack in the meeting hall. While Day ate breakfast, 10 pounds of synthesized meat, Vex showed Jin-Ho new fighting moves. Jin-Ho was getting better, but he knew he would never be as strong or fast as the Terrell. "You think too much," said Vex after throwing Jin-Ho to the ground for the 5th time. "Your body must react without thought." Jin-Ho got up, rubbing his shoulder. "Easy for you to say. You've been training for hundreds of years." Vex made the grinding sound that was Terrell laughter. "True. But you learn quickly for a human." A happy trill came from across the garden. Day had finished eating and was watching them. Jin-Ho noticed that Day's eyes followed their movements carefully. "I think Day is studying our practice," said Jin-Ho. Vex looked at the Vorskan. "Yes, it watches everything we do. Its mind grows as fast as its body." After training, Jin-Ho took Day to Dr. Song Yi's research lab for tests. These had become part of their daily routine. The council wanted regular updates on Day's development. "Good morning, you two," said Dr. Song Yi as they entered. "How's our star pupil today?" Day made a friendly chirp. It liked Dr. Song Yi now. She always gave it treats after the tests. "The usual tests?" asked Jin-Ho. Dr. Song Yi shook her head. "Something new today. The council wants to see if Day can solve puzzles." She pointed to a strange box on the floor. It had different panels that moved and holes of various shapes. "Treats are inside," said Dr. Song Yi. "Let's see if Day can figure out how to get them." Jin-Ho looked at Day. "Want to try?" Day moved to the box and sniffed it. Then it walked around the box once, studying it from all sides. Jin-Ho and Dr. Song Yi watched as Day used one clawed limb to push a sliding panel, then another to turn a dial. With each correct move, the box changed. In less than 5 minutes, Day had solved the puzzle. The box opened, revealing treats inside. "Amazing," said Dr. Song Yi. "That box was designed to challenge the smartest non-sentient species in the galaxy. None have solved it so quickly." Jin-Ho wasn't surprised. He had seen signs of Day's intelligence, growing every day. Sometimes he would find Day watching the station's education programs on the room's screen. Other times, Day would organize its toys in patterns that seemed to have meaning. "Did you record that?" asked Jin-Ho. "The council will want to see it." Dr. Song Yi nodded. "I've been recording everything, but there's something else I want to show you." She led them to a computer station. On the screen was a chart with 2 lines. One was much higher than the other. "The lower line shows the brain development of ancient Vorskans based on fossil records," said Dr. Song Yi. "The upper line is Day." Jin-Ho stared at the chart. "That's a big difference." "It's not just big, it's unprecedented," said Dr. Song Yi. "Something about Day's bond with you has changed how its brain develops. It's growing neural connections that Vorskans never had before." Day came to Jin-Ho's side and looked at the screen. Jin-Ho wondered how much it understood. "What does this mean?" asked Jin-Ho. Dr. Song Yi looked serious. "It means the council was wrong about Vorskans. They weren't just animals. They might have been an emerging sentient species." The implications hit Jin-Ho hard. "You mean the Terrell might have hunted an intelligent species to extinction," said Dr. Song Yi quietly, without ever realizing it. Later that day, Jin-Ho sat in the garden with Day. He couldn't stop thinking about what Dr. Song Yi had said. If Vorskans had been on the path to true intelligence, what the Terrell did was more than hunting. It was something much worse. Day seemed to sense Jin-Ho's mood. It moved closer and put its head on his lap. At times like this, despite its size and deadly nature, Day reminded Jin-Ho of a pet dog seeking comfort, but Day was so much more than a pet. The proof was right in front of him every day. "I wish you could talk," said Jin-Ho, stroking Day's head. "I wish I knew what you're thinking." Day lifted its head and looked at Jin-Ho with those intelligent yellow eyes. Then it did something new. It raised one front limb and made a series of movements. Jin-Ho watched, confused. The movements seemed deliberate, like Day was trying to tell him something. It hit him suddenly. Are you trying to make signs, like sign language?" Day repeated the movement, then added another. Jin-Ho's heart raced. Dr. Song-yi needs to see this. Over the next few hours, Jin-ho and Dr. Song-yi watched as Day made different movements with its front limbs. Some seemed random, but others were clearly repeated. "It's trying to communicate," said Dr. Song-yi with awe in her voice. "This is beyond anything we expected." They worked late into the night, trying to understand what Day was doing. Finally, Jin-ho had an idea. "Let's try this," he said. He made a simple hand sign, then pointed to himself. "Jin-ho." He repeated it several times, then he waited. Day watched carefully. Then it moved one front limb in a copy of Jin-ho's movement. "Yes," said Jin-ho. "That's it." They tried more signs: food, water, play. Each time, Day learned quickly. "We need to tell the council," said Dr. Song-yi. "This changes everything." Jin-ho nodded. If Day could learn sign language, it proved what he had believed all along. Day wasn't just an animal, it was a thinking being. As Dr. Song-yi left to prepare a report, Jin-ho looked at Day with new understanding. "We're going to show everyone who you really are," he said. Day made the sign for Jin-ho, then added a new sign. Jin-ho didn't know what it meant yet, but he had a feeling it might be Day's sign for Dad. 1 year had passed since Day hatched from its egg. The Vorskan was now the size of a small shuttlecraft. Its midnight blue scales gleamed under any light, and its 6 powerful limbs could crush metal with ease. When Day walked through the station, the floor vibrated with each step. But despite its fearsome size, Day was gentle with Jin-ho. They had developed their own sign language with over 200 different signs. Day could now talk about its needs, thoughts, and even feelings. Today was special. The Galactic Council had called an emergency meeting about Day. Jin-ho, Dr. Song-yi, and Vex stood in the main meeting hall with Day behind them. The room was packed with representatives from many alien species. "This meeting will now begin," said Counselor Zin, the tall, thin alien who had first seen Day a year ago. "We are here to discuss the status of the Vorskan known as Dai." Jin-ho felt nervous. This meeting would decide Day's future, and his own. "Dr. Park," said Counselor Zin, "please present your findings." Jin-ho stepped forward. He had practiced his speech many times, but still felt his heart racing. "Honored council members," he began. "1 year ago, I became the caretaker of a newly hatched Vorskan. Many thought it was a mistake to let a human raise such a dangerous predator. Some feared Day would never be more than a wild animal." Jin-ho looked back at Day, who watched him with intelligent yellow eyes. "They were wrong," said Jin-ho. "Day has shown incredible growth, not just in body but in mind. It has learned to communicate using a sign language we developed together. It can solve complex problems. It shows creativity and empathy." Dr. Song-yi stepped forward with a data tablet. "Our research confirms that Dai's brain has developed neural pathways never seen in ancient Vorskans. Its intelligence is unlike anything we expected." Jin-ho nodded. "I believe this proves what some have suspected. Vorskans were never simply apex predators. They were an emerging sentient species." A murmur ran through the crowd. Ambassador Krell stood up from his seat among the Terrell delegation. "If what you say is true," said Krell, "then my ancestors made a terrible mistake when they hunted the Vorskans." Jin-ho had worried about this moment. Would the Terrell be angry at what his research suggested? But Krell's next words surprised him. "We must face this truth," continued Krell, "and we must make it right. The Terrell Empire pledges all its resources to finding any remaining Vorskan genetic material to help restore this noble species." Counselor Zin looked thoughtful. "This brings us to the question of Day's status. If Vorskans were indeed on the path to sentience, then how should we classify Day?" Jin-ho had an answer ready. Day should be recognized as a sentient being with rights. Not human rights, not Terrell rights, but Vorskan rights, the right to live, learn, and grow. "And who would speak for this Vorskan?" asked another council member. "Who would represent its interests?" Jin-ho stood straighter. "I would, as its caretaker." Day moved forward then. The council members tensed as the massive predator approached the speaking platform. Jin-Ho held up a hand to show it was okay. With deliberate movements, Day made a series of signs. Jin-Ho translated. Day says, Jin-Ho is not caretaker. Jin-Ho is family. Jin-Ho is dad. The room fell silent. Then Vex stepped forward, surprising everyone. I have watched human Jin-Ho and Day for 1 year, said the Terrell warrior. I came to study a predator. Instead, I witnessed the birth of understanding between two very different beings. If this is not the kind of connection we seek between species, then what is? Counselor Zin conferred with the other council members. The minutes stretched on. Finally, the counselor turned back to face the room. The council has made a decision, said Zin. The Vorskan known as Day will be granted provisional sentient status. Dr. Jin-Ho Park will serve as both guardian and ambassador for Day and any future Vorskans. Jin-Ho felt a rush of relief and happiness. He looked at Day, who was making the sign for happy over and over. Furthermore, continued Zin, we recognize the special bond between Dr. Park and Day as an example of cross-species connection that all of us should learn from. After the meeting, Jin-Ho, Day, Dr. Song Yi, and Vex gathered in the station's garden. They were joined by Tae-woo, who had helped navigate the complex politics of the situation. You did it, said Tae-woo, patting Jin-Ho on the shoulder. You changed how the galaxy sees Vorskans. We did it, corrected Jin-Ho. All of us. Doctor, Song Yi smiled. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm going to miss you two when you leave. Jin-Ho nodded. The council had approved a special habitat on a nearby planet where Day would have room to explore and grow. Jin-Ho would go too, continuing his research and caring for Day. You will visit? Asked Vex. The Terrell warrior had been assigned to accompany them to the new habitat. Of course, said Jin-Ho. Day would miss you too much. Day made a sign that meant something like, Vex is amusing. Over the months, Day had developed what Jin-Ho could only call a sense of humor. It especially enjoyed surprising new station staff who weren't expecting to see a massive predator around a corner. Jin-Ho's communicator buzzed. It was Ambassador Krell. Dr. Park, said the ambassador's voice. We have news. Our scientists have found 2 more Vorskan eggs in an ancient trophy vault. Jin-Ho's heart skipped a beat. Are they viable? Yes, said Krell. They have been in stasis like Day's egg was. The council has requested that you supervise their hatching. Jin-Ho looked at Day, who had heard the news. The Vorskan was making excited movements with all 6 limbs. We would be honored, said Jin-Ho. When? The eggs will arrive at your new habitat in 1 month, said Krell. There is more. The council wishes Day to be present when they hatch. They believe the young Vorskans might benefit from an older sibling. After the call ended, Jin-Ho sat beside Day in the garden. The others had left to prepare for their departure, leaving them alone. Can you believe it? Jin-Ho asked. You're going to have brothers or sisters. Day made the sign for family, then added the sign for more. Jin-Ho smiled. Family was growing. A young Tyrell approached them hesitantly. Jin-Ho recognized him as part of the new delegation that had arrived that week. Human Jin-Ho, said the young Tyrell. May I ask a question? Jin-Ho nodded. Of course. The Tyrell looked at Day with a mix of fear and wonder. How did you know the Vorskan would not eat you when it hatched? Jin-Ho smiled as Day gently bumped its massive head against his shoulder in a gesture of affection. I didn't, Jin-Ho answered honestly. But sometimes being a parent means taking risks for someone who needs you. Species doesn't matter when it comes to family. The young Tyrell seemed to think about this. Our ancestors would not understand such thinking. Maybe not, said Jin-Ho. But you do. That's progress. Later, as they packed their belongings for the move to their new home, Day made a series of signs that Jin-Ho hadn't seen before. What's that? Asked Jin-Ho. A new sign? Day repeated the movements, then pointed to Jin-Ho, then to itself, then made a wide gesture that seemed to include the stars beyond the station walls. Jinho thought he understood. Future? You and me in the future? Day nodded its massive head. Then it added the sign for good. Jinho smiled. Yes, Day. I think our future will be good. As the most dangerous apex predator in the galaxy curled up beside him, Jinho reflected on the strange path his life had taken. 1 year ago, he had been just a xenobiologist with a normal life. Now he was the adopted father of the last Vorskin, soon to be the guardian of 2 more. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would he. All because he had been crazy enough to let a human babysit an apex predator. The end.